The universe was vast, endless, and filled with wonders beyond imagination. Among its countless stars, planets, and civilizations, there existed an alliance of advanced alien species. This council had been formed centuries ago, a gathering of the most intelligent and powerful beings in the cosmos. Their purpose was simple: to maintain balance and ensure that no single race grew strong enough to threaten the harmony of the galaxy. On this day, the council convened in secret. The location was a dimly lit chamber aboard a massive spaceship hovering near the edge of a dying star. The air was thick with tension as representatives from various species gathered around a glowing holographic table. At the center of the discussion stood Kyle, a tall and imposing figure from the Verthian race. His metallic skin shimmered faintly under the light, and his piercing eyes scanned the room with cold precision. Opposite him sat Yunha, a scientist from the aquatic Lumerians. Her translucent blue skin glowed softly, and her voice carried a soothing calmness that contrasted sharply with Kale's stern demeanor. She leaned forward, resting her webbed hands on the table, ready to defend her perspective. "Humans," Kale began, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. "They are unpredictable, destructive, and dangerous. In less than a millennium, they have gone from primitive tribes to developing nuclear weapons and exploring space. If we do not act now, they will become unstoppable." Ona tilted her head slightly, her expression thoughtful. "Kale, you speak only of their flaws. Yes, humans are capable of great destruction, but they are also capable of incredible creativity and compassion. Have you considered what might happen if we reached out to them instead of attacking?" Kale's lips tightened into a thin line. Compassion? Creativity? Those traits mean nothing when compared to their capacity for chaos. Look at their history: wars, environmental devastation, greed. They cannot be trusted. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Many of the council members shared Kale's concerns. Humans were indeed a peculiar species. Unlike most intelligent life forms, which evolved slowly and methodically, humans seemed to leap forward in unpredictable bursts. One moment they were painting pictures on cave walls. The next, they were sending machines to explore other planets. Yunha sighed softly, sensing the weight of the opposition against her. Still, she refused to back down. "We must look deeper. Humans have survived disasters that would have wiped out any other species. They adapt quickly, learn faster, and share knowledge across generations. These qualities make them unique and potentially invaluable allies." Kale crossed his arms over his chest, his gaze narrowing. "Invaluable allies? Or insurmountable threats? You underestimate the danger they pose. Their emotions drive them to irrational decisions. Fear, anger, ambition, they act without logic or foresight." Una nodded slowly, acknowledging his point. "Yes, their emotions can lead them astray. But those same emotions also inspire acts of heroism and selflessness. Think about it. How many species would risk everything to save another planet? Even one that isn't their own. Humans did exactly that during their first interstellar mission. They repaired a damaged moon orbiting a neighboring world, preventing catastrophic consequences for an entire ecosystem. The mention of this event caused some of the council members to shift uncomfortably in their seats. It was true. The humans' actions during that mission had surprised everyone. While their motives remained unclear, their willingness to help others, even strangers, was undeniable. Kyle, however, remained unconvinced. "That was one isolated incident. We cannot base our judgment on such anomalies. What happens when their ambitions grow larger than their morals? When they begin expanding into the stars, consuming resources and dominating weaker species? Will you still defend them then?" Yuna met his gaze steadily. "I am not blind to the risks, Kyle, but neither should we dismiss the possibilities. Imagine what humanity could achieve if guided properly. Their adaptability and ingenuity could solve problems we've struggled with for millennia. Together, we could build a future where all species thrive, not just survive." For a moment, silence fell over the chamber. The council members exchanged uneasy glances, weighing the arguments presented by both sides. Finally, a soft-spoken representative named Ara spoke up. "Perhaps there is a middle ground. Instead of rushing to judgment, why don't we send a reconnaissance team to observe them firsthand? Let us gather more information before deciding their fate. The suggestion sparked a wave of murmurs. It was a reasonable compromise, one that allowed the council to delay making a final decision while still addressing Kale's concerns. After a brief deliberation, the motion was approved. A small team would be dispatched to Earth, tasked with studying humanity up close and reporting back with their findings. As the meeting drew to a close, Kyle turned to Yunha, his expression unreadable. Very well. Let us see what your precious humans are truly made of. But mark my words, if they prove to be the threat I believe they are, I will not hesitate to take action. Una held his gaze, her resolve unwavering. And if they prove to be something greater, something worth protecting? Kyle didn't respond. He simply turned and walked away, leaving the chamber behind. Una watched him go, her mind racing, with thoughts of what lay ahead. The fate of humanity, and perhaps the entire cosmos, rested on the shoulders of the reconnaissance team. Whatever they discovered, it would change everything. Far away, on a small blue planet orbiting a yellow sun, life continued as usual. Billions of people went about their daily routines, unaware that they were being watched and judged by forces far beyond their understanding. For now, Earth remained blissfully ignorant of the cosmic storm brewing in the stars above. Little did anyone know, the choices made in that distant chamber would shape the destiny of the human race. And whether humanity rose to meet the challenges ahead or fell victim to its own flaws, one thing was certain: the universe would never be the same again. The reconnaissance team arrived on Earth under the cover of darkness, their sleek spacecraft blending seamlessly into the night sky. They had chosen a remote location for landing, a quiet forest far from prying eyes. Their mission was clear: observe humanity closely, gather data, and report back to the Council. But none of them could have anticipated just how complicated their task would become. Leading the team was Jin Woo, a sharp-eyed operative known for his ability to blend into unfamiliar environments. He stood at the edge of the clearing where their ship had landed, scanning the area with a handheld scanner. The device hummed softly as it analyzed the air, soil, and surrounding flora. Everything seemed normal. Almost too normal. Jinwoo frowned slightly but pushed the thought aside. He had more pressing matters to attend to. "All right," he said, turning to address his team. "We stick to the plan. Stay in disguise, avoid drawing attention, and focus on gathering intel. Remember, we're tourists here. Act natural." The team nodded in agreement, adjusting their holographic disguises to resemble human forms. Each member had been given a specific role to play, designed to allow them to infiltrate different aspects of human society. One posed as a tech entrepreneur, another as an environmental activist, and a third as a philosophy professor. Jin Woo himself had decided to take on the persona of a travel blogger, a role that would let him move freely while observing humanity up close. With preparations complete, the team split up, each heading toward their assigned destinations. Jinwoo began his journey in a bustling city, where towering skyscrapers loomed over crowded streets filled with people rushing to and fro. The sheer energy of the place was overwhelming, even for someone accustomed to navigating alien worlds. Everywhere he looked, humans were engaged in countless activities, talking, laughing, arguing, working. It was chaotic, yet strangely captivating. As Jinwoo wandered through the city, he soon found himself drawn to a small cafe tucked between two larger buildings. Inside, the atmosphere was warm and inviting, with the smell of freshly brewed coffee filling the air. He took a seat near the window, ordering a drink he didn't intend to consume. From this vantage point, he could watch the flow of human life without attracting suspicion. It was there that he first encountered Sohee, a young journalist with a keen eye for detail. She entered the cafe carrying a notebook and pen, her dark hair tied back in a loose ponytail. Her gaze swept across the room before settling on Jinwoo. Something about him caught her attention. Perhaps it was the way he sat perfectly still, observing everything around him with quiet intensity. So he approached his table cautiously. "Mind if I join you?" she asked, gesturing to the empty chair across from him. Jinwoo hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Go ahead." She sat down, placing her notebook on the table. "I'm Sohee," she said, offering a friendly smile. "I couldn't help but notice you've been sitting here for a while. Are you new to the city?" "Yes," Jinwoo replied carefully, choosing his words with precision. "Just visiting, trying to get a feel for the place." Sohee's eyes sparkled with curiosity. "What brings you here? Business? Pleasure?" "Pleasure," Jinwoo answered, quickly, though he wasn't entirely sure what the word meant in this context. "I write about experiences, different cultures, lifestyles, that sort of thing." "Oh, a travel blogger," Sohee exclaimed, clearly intrigued. "That sounds fascinating. Do you mind if I ask you some questions? I'm working on a piece about interesting people I meet around town." Jinwoo tensed slightly. This was not part of the plan. He hadn't expected anyone to show such interest in him so soon. Still, he forced himself to remain calm. "Sure," he said, managing a polite smile. "Ask away." Over the next hour, Sohee peppered him with questions about his travels, his favorite places, and his impressions of the city. Jinwoo answered as best he could, improvising details whenever necessary. To his relief, Sohee seemed satisfied with his responses, though she occasionally gave him a curious look, as if sensing something unusual about him. When their conversation ended, Sohee thanked him and left, promising to send him a copy of her article once it was published. Jinwoo watched, her go feeling both relieved and unsettled. He had successfully navigated the encounter without raising suspicion, but Sohee's presence lingered in his mind. There was something about her, her sharp instincts, her relentless curiosity, that made him uneasy. Meanwhile, the rest of the HFY team was making progress of their own. The tech entrepreneur had secured a position at a cutting-edge startup where he marveled at humanity's rapid advancements in artificial intelligence and robotics. Despite their relatively short existence as a species, humans had managed to create machines capable of learning and adapting in ways that rivaled even the most sophisticated alien technologies. The environmental activist, meanwhile, joined a humanitarian aid group focused on combating climate change. She witnessed firsthand the devastating effects of human activity on the planet, melting ice caps, rising sea levels, and dying ecosystems. Yet she also saw hope in the form of grassroots movements and innovative solutions aimed at reversing the damage. Humans were destroying their world, yes, but they were also fighting to save it. The philosophy professor immersed himself in the study of ancient human texts, exploring ideas about morality, existence, and the nature of consciousness. What struck him most was humanity's capacity for introspection, their constant questioning of who they were and why they existed. No other species he had encountered displayed such a deep desire to understand themselves and their place in the universe. Back at the cafe, Jinwoo continued his observations, keeping a close eye on Sohee whenever she returned to interview other patrons. Over time, he began to see her as more than just a potential threat. She was intelligent, resourceful, and driven by a genuine desire to uncover truths. In many ways, she reminded him of Yunha, whose belief in humanity's potential had sparked fierce debates within the council. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Jinwoo found himself seated beside Sohee once again. This time, she turned the tables, asking him personal questions about his background and motivations. He deflected most of them, steering the conversation towards safer topics. But when she asked why he chose to document human experiences, he paused, genuinely unsure of how to respond. "I guess," he began slowly, searching for the right words. "I find humans fascinating. You're unpredictable, full of contradictions. Sometimes you hurt each other. Sometimes you heal each other. And despite all your flaws, you keep moving forward, trying to make things better." Sohee smiled softly, her expression thoughtful. "That's a pretty insightful observation for someone who claims to be just passing through." Jinwoo felt a flicker of unease, but maintained his composure. "Maybe I've seen enough of the galaxy to appreciate what makes you unique." Her gaze lingered on him for a moment longer before she leaned back in her chair, seemingly satisfied with his answer. "Well, whatever your reasons, I'm glad I met you. You've given me a lot to think about." As the days passed, Jinwoo found himself growing increasingly conflicted. On one hand, his mission required him to remain detached, to view humanity as nothing more than a subject of study. On the other hand, his interactions with Sohi and the reports coming in from his team were revealing layers of complexity he hadn't anticipated. Humans weren't simply destructive or altruistic. They were both, and so much more. Late one night, as Jinwoo reviewed the latest data collected by the team, he realized something profound. Humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology, their adaptability, or even their creativity. It was their ability to balance opposing forces, to embrace chaos and order, destruction and creation, fear and hope, all at once. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Jinwoo allowed himself to wonder, could Yunhe be right? Were humans truly worth protecting? Or was Kale correct in believing they posed a threat too great to ignore? The answers remained elusive, hidden somewhere within the tangled web of human behavior. But one thing was certain. The reconnaissance team had only scratched the surface. Whatever secrets humanity held, they were far deeper and far more complex than anyone had imagined. Jinwoo sat alone in his small rented apartment, staring at the glowing screen of his communicator. The device displayed a steady stream of updates from the reconnaissance team, each report adding another layer to the puzzle that was humanity. He scrolled through the messages, his brow furrowed in thought. Despite weeks of observation, he still couldn't decide whether humans were a threat or an opportunity. The tech entrepreneur had sent detailed notes about Earth's advancements in artificial intelligence. Humans were creating machines that could think, learn, and even mimic emotions. These machines weren't perfect, far from it, but they showed potential. The entrepreneur described how human engineers worked tirelessly, fueled by caffeine and determination, to solve problems that seemed insurmountable. Their passion was infectious, their creativity boundless. Meanwhile, the environmental activist reported on humanity's struggle against climate change. She had witnessed devastating scenes, entire cities submerged under rising waters, forests, reduced to ashes by wildfires, animals driven to extinction. Yet she also saw hope. Communities came together to plant trees, clean rivers, and develop renewable energy sources. Humans didn't just accept their mistakes. They fought to fix them, even when the odds were stacked against them. The philosophy professor's findings were perhaps the most intriguing. He delved into ancient texts, exploring the depths of human thought. From Confucius to Nietzsche, humans had spent thousands of years pondering questions about morality, purpose, and existence. What struck the professor most was their ability to question everything, even themselves. No other species he had encountered displayed such relentless introspection. Jinwoo leaned back in his chair, letting out a long sigh. Each report painted a different picture of humanity, brilliant yet flawed, destructive yet compassionate, chaotic yet hopeful. How could one species embody so many contradictions? And more importantly, what did it mean for the future of the galaxy? His thoughts were interrupted by a soft knock on the door. Startled, Jinwoo quickly minimized the communicator screen and stood up. He wasn't expecting visitors. Peering through the peephole, he saw Sohi standing outside, holding a paper bag. Her presence made him uneasy, but he couldn't turn her away without raising suspicion. "Hey," she said with a warm smile as he opened the door. "I brought you something." Jinwoo stepped aside to let her in. "What is it?" "Dinner," she replied, placing the bag on the table. "You've been coming to the cafe every day for weeks, and I noticed you always order coffee but never eat anything. Thought you might be hungry." He hesitated, unsure how to respond. On one hand, her kindness was touching. On the other, her attention was becoming harder to manage. "Thank you," he finally said, forcing a polite smile. "That's very thoughtful." They sat down together, and so he began unpacking the food. As they ate, she chatted casually about her work, sharing stories about the people she had interviewed and the places she had visited. Jinwoo listened intently, marveling at her enthusiasm. She had a way of finding beauty in the mundane, of seeing connections where others saw only chaos. At one point, she paused mid-sentence and looked at him curiously. "You know, you're really hard to figure out." Jinwoo froze, his fork halfway to his mouth. "What do you mean?" "I mean, She tilted her head slightly, studying him. You seem interested in everything, but you don't talk much about yourself. It's like you're observing us, not just me, but all of humanity, as if we're some kind of experiment. Her words hit too close to home. Jinwoo forced himself to laugh lightly, brushing off her comment. Maybe I'm just shy. So he raised an eyebrow, clearly unconvinced. Or maybe you're hiding something. For a moment, silence hung between them. Jinwoo's mind raced, searching for a way to deflect her suspicion. But before he could respond, she smiled again, breaking the tension. Anyway, enough about me. Tell me something interesting about yourself. Where are you from? What made you want to travel? Caught off guard, Jinwoo hesitated. He couldn't tell her the truth, that he was from a distant planet, sent here, to evaluate her species. Instead, he improvised. I grew up in a small village far from here. My parents were farmers and life was simple. But I always felt restless. Like there was something bigger out there waiting for me. So you left? So he asked, leaning forward with genuine interest. Yes, Jinwoo replied, surprised by how easy it was to fabricate details. I wanted to see the world, meet new people, understand what makes them tick. She nodded slowly, her expression thoughtful. That's brave. Most people stay in their comfort zones. They're afraid of change. Jinwoo looked at her, struck by the irony of her statement. Here he was, an alien disguised as a human, pretending to be something he wasn't, all while trying to understand a species known for its adaptability and courage. In many ways, humans were braver than he could ever be. After dinner, so he stayed a little longer, asking more questions about his travels. Jinwoo answered carefully, weaving lies with truths until even he wasn't sure what was real anymore. When she finally left, he closed the door behind her and sank onto the couch, feeling drained. Over the next few days, Jinwoo continued his observations, focusing on moments that highlighted humanity's unique qualities. One evening, he attended a community event organized by the environmental activist. Dozens of volunteers gathered to clean up a polluted riverbank, working side by side despite their differences. Some were young students, others elderly retirees. They laughed, shared stories, and sang songs as they filled bags with trash. It was a scene of unity and purpose, proof that humans could come together for a common cause. Another time he followed Sohee to a hospital where she was interviewing doctors and nurses. The staff worked tirelessly, treating patients with care and compassion. One nurse, exhausted after a 12-hour shift, stopped to comfort a crying child. Her gentle words and reassuring smile reminded Jinwoo of Yunha, whose belief in humanity's potential had sparked fierce debates within the council. But it wasn't all heartwarming moments. Jinwoo also witnessed darker sides of human nature. He saw politicians lying to gain power, corporations exploiting workers for profit, and individuals turning a blind eye to suffering. Humanity was capable of great cruelty, often driven by greed, fear, or ignorance. Despite these flaws, Jinwoo couldn't shake the feeling that humans were extraordinary. They weren't perfect. They made mistakes, hurt each other, and damaged their planet. But they never gave up. Even when faced with seemingly insurmountable challenges, they kept pushing forward, driven by a mix of ambition, resilience, and hope. One night, as Jinwoo reviewed the latest data from his team, he received an urgent message from Yunha. She had analyzed the information they had gathered and discovered something remarkable. Humans possessed a unique neural network that allowed them to adapt and innovate at an unprecedented rate. Unlike most species, whose evolution followed predictable patterns, humans constantly reinvented themselves through culture, technology, and collective learning. This changes everything, Yuna wrote. Their adaptability makes them nearly impossible to predict or control. Any attempt to dominate them would only accelerate their development into an unstoppable force. Jinwoo stared at the message, his mind racing. Yuna's findings confirmed what he had begun to suspect. Humanity's greatest strength lay not in their physical abilities or technological prowess, but in their capacity for growth and connection. They were unpredictable, yes, but that unpredictability was also their greatest asset. As dawn broke over the city, Jinwoo stepped onto his balcony, watching the sun rise above the horizon. Below him, The streets came alive with activity, people heading to work, children walking to school, vendors setting up stalls. Humanity was a paradox, a blend of light and darkness, chaos and order. And yet, amidst all the contradictions, there was something undeniably beautiful about them. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Jinwoo allowed himself to feel a glimmer of hope. Maybe Yunha was right. Maybe humanity wasn't a threat to be feared, but a partner to be embraced. Whatever the future held, one thing was certain. Humans were unlike any species the universe had ever seen. Back on the alien homeworld, the council chamber buzzed with tension. The holographic table at the center displayed a live feed from Earth, showing snippets of humanity's daily life. Crowded streets, bustling markets, and towering skyscrapers. Kale stood at the head of the table, his metallic skin glinting under the harsh light. His expression was unreadable, but his clenched fists betrayed his frustration. Yuna sat across from him, her translucent blue form glowing softly as she reviewed the latest reports from Jinwoo's team. Her findings had sparked heated debates among the council members. Humanity's adaptability, creativity, and unpredictability made them a species unlike any other. But while Yuna saw potential allies, Kale saw an imminent threat. "We cannot wait any longer," Kale declared, his deep voice cutting through the murmurs in the room. "Every moment we delay gives them time to grow stronger. If we do not act now, they will surpass us, and then it will be too late." Unha raised her hand calmly, signaling for silence. "Kyle, your fears are understandable, but acting rashly would only make matters worse. We've seen how humans respond to challenges. They unite, innovate, and overcome. Attacking them outright would only accelerate their development into a force we cannot control." Kale's eyes narrowed. "And what do you propose? That we sit back and watch as they spread across the stars, consuming resources and destabilizing the galaxy?" "No," Yunha replied firmly. "I propose we test them. Let us present them with a challenge, one that will reveal their true nature. If they rise to meet it with wisdom and cooperation, then perhaps there is hope for coexistence. But if they succumb to fear and division, we will have our answer." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. A test sounded reasonable, but the risks were significant. If humanity failed, the consequences could ripple across the cosmos. Still, Yuna's argument carried weight, and after much deliberation, the council agreed to proceed. The plan was simple yet bold. Using advanced technology, the aliens would simulate a massive asteroid on a collision course with Earth. The simulation would appear real enough to trigger a global response, allowing the council to observe how humanity reacted under pressure. Would they panic and turn on each other, or would they come together to find a solution? With the decision made, the council initiated the simulation. From Earth's perspective, a colossal asteroid suddenly appeared in the sky, hurtling toward the planet at an alarming speed. News outlets around the world broke the story within hours, and soon every nation was on high alert. On Earth, Jinwoo watched the unfolding chaos from his apartment. Television screens flashed images of the asteroid, accompanied by panicked headlines. Scientists scrambled to calculate its trajectory, while governments convened emergency meetings to discuss countermeasures. Social media erupted with fear and speculation, as people wondered if this was the end of the world. Jinwoo felt a pang of guilt. He knew the asteroid wasn't real, it was just a test, but he couldn't intervene without blowing his cover. Instead, he focused on observing humanity's response, reporting back to the council with updates. To his surprise, the initial reaction wasn't panic. While some individuals succumbed to fear, the majority of humanity responded with remarkable calmness. Leaders from different countries issued statements urging unity and collaboration. Scientists, engineers, and even ordinary citizens began working together, pooling resources and knowledge to devise a plan. At the cafe where Jinwoo often met So-hee, the atmosphere was tense but hopeful. Patrons huddled around laptops and smartphones, discussing theories and sharing ideas. So-hee herself was deeply involved in covering the event, interviewing experts and documenting humanity's efforts to save itself. One day, she approached Jinwoo with a determined look in her eyes. "They're saying we might actually pull this off," she said, sitting down beside him. "It's incredible, isn't it? All these people, from different nations, backgrounds, and beliefs, working together for a common goal. Jinwoo nodded, slowly, impressed, despite himself. Yes, it is. So he leaned closer, lowering her voice. Do you think this is really happening? Or is it possible someone staged this whole thing? Her question caught him off guard. What makes you say that? I don't know, she admitted. Something feels off. The timing, the way everyone came together so quickly. It's almost too perfect. Jinwoo hesitated, unsure how to respond. He couldn't reveal the truth, but he also didn't want to dismiss her instincts. Maybe you're overthinking it, he said finally. Sometimes crises bring out the best in people. So he frowned, clearly unconvinced. But before she could press further, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. She excused herself and stepped outside, leaving Jinwoo alone with his thoughts. As days turned into weeks, humanity's response to the simulated asteroid grew increasingly impressive. Engineers designed spacecraft capable of deflecting the asteroid, while scientists developed contingency plans in case the mission failed. Ordinary citizens volunteered their skills and resources, contributing whatever they could to the effort. Even rival nations set aside their differences, collaborating on a scale never seen before. Factories once dedicated to weapons production were repurposed to build tools and equipment needed for the mission. Students skipped classes to help with calculations, and retirees offered their expertise to guide younger generations. Jinwoo reported everything back to the council, detailing humanity's ingenuity and resilience. Eunha listened intently, her expression one of quiet satisfaction. This proves my point, she said during one transmission. When faced with a shared challenge, humans unite. Their ability to cooperate and innovate is unparalleled. Kyle remained skeptical. It's easy to work together when the stakes are clear. But what happens when the threat is ambiguous? When fear takes hold? Eunha didn't argue. She knew Kale's concerns were valid, but she also believed in humanity's capacity to overcome even the darkest moments. For now, the test continued, and all they could do was wait. Unbeknownst to the Council, rogue factions within the alien alliance had begun interfering with the simulation. These factions, led by those who distrusted humanity, planted false evidence suggesting the asteroid was sent by an extraterrestrial enemy. They hoped to provoke paranoia and division among humans, proving once and for all that humanity was too dangerous to trust. The fabricated evidence spread quickly, thanks to hacked communications and manipulated data. Conspiracy theories flourished, accusing various nations of orchestrating the asteroid as a ploy for power. Tensions rose, and cracks began to form in the fragile unity that had held humanity together. But instead of succumbing to fear, humanity fought back. Journalists like Sohee worked tirelessly to expose the misinformation, using logic and evidence to debunk false claims. Scientists provided transparent updates, ensuring the public remained informed. Leaders called for calm, reminding people of their shared responsibility to protect the planet. Jinwoo watched as Sohee played a key role in uncovering the truth. She traced the origins of the fake evidence to a single source, a mysterious signal, originating from space. Though she couldn't decipher its exact meaning, she published her findings, urging humanity to focus on solving the real problem rather than chasing shadows. Her actions inspired others to follow suit. Across the globe, people rallied behind the idea of unity, rejecting attempts to sow discord. Even as the rogue factions tried to escalate their interference, humanity refused to be divided. In the end, the simulated asteroid was successfully deflected, thanks to a coordinated global effort. Fireworks lit up the night sky as people celebrated their victory, hugging strangers and cheering in the streets. For a brief moment, humanity forgot its differences, united by a shared triumph. Jinwoo stood on his balcony watching the festivities below. Despite knowing the asteroid wasn't real, he couldn't help but feel proud. Humanity had passed the test, not just by solving the problem, but by overcoming fear and misinformation along the way. Back on the alien homeworld, the Council convened once again. Yuna presented her final analysis, emphasizing humanity's strength in the face of adversity. They proved they can handle challenges with wisdom and courage, she concluded. Attacking them would only strengthen their resolve. Instead, we should consider reaching out to them. Kale remained silent, his expression grim. He still believed humanity posed a risk, but even he couldn't deny the results of the test. Reluctantly, he nodded, agreeing to let the council vote on whether to make contact. As the decision hung in the balance, Jinwoo realized something profound. Humanity wasn't just unpredictable or resilient. They were adaptable, resourceful, and deeply connected to one another. Their flaws were undeniable, but so were their strengths. And in that delicate balance lay their true power. Whatever happened. Next, one thing was certain. Humanity had earned its place among the stars. The council chamber on the alien homeworld was silent, save for the soft hum of the holographic displays showing Earth's celebrations. The simulated asteroid had been successfully deflected, and humanity's response to the crisis had exceeded even Yunha's expectations. Yet, as the council members reviewed the data, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Kyle stood at the center of the room, his metallic frame rigid with frustration. He had always believed that humanity's unpredictability made them a threat, and now he felt vindicated by the rogue faction's interference. "This proves my point," he said, his voice low but sharp. Even when tested fairly, they were manipulated into chaos. Their emotions make them vulnerable to fear and division. Imagine what would happen if an actual enemy exploited these weaknesses. Yunha, seated across from him, leaned forward, her glowing blue skin casting a faint light on the table. "You're focusing on the wrong part of the story, Kale. Yes, rogue factions tried to sow discord, but look at how humanity responded. They didn't succumb to paranoia or turn on each other. Instead, they worked together to expose the truth and stayed united in solving the problem. That resilience is exactly why they deserve a chance." A murmur of agreement rippled through the council. Some members nodded in support of Yuna's argument, while others exchanged uneasy glances. The test had revealed both humanity's vulnerabilities and their strengths, leaving the council divided on how to proceed. Finally, Ara, the soft-spoken representative who had first suggested sending the reconnaissance team, spoke up. "We cannot ignore what we've learned. Humanity is unpredictable, yes, but they are also capable of extraordinary cooperation and innovation. If we attack them now, we risk creating the very enemy we fear. But if we reach out to them, offer them a partnership, they might become allies strong enough to face future challenges alongside us." Kyle clenched his jaw, visibly struggling to contain his anger. And what happens when they grow too powerful? When their ambitions outweigh their morals? You're gambling with the safety of the entire galaxy. Yuna met his gaze calmly. "No species is without risk, Kyle. Even our own histories are filled with mistakes and conflicts. The question isn't whether humanity is dangerous. It's whether we can guide them toward becoming something greater. Together, we could achieve things neither of us could accomplish alone." After hours of heated debate, the council reached a decision. They would reveal themselves to humanity, not as conquerors, but as potential allies. It was a risky move, one that required trust on both sides, but the council agreed it was better than the alternative. With the motion passed, preparations began for first contact. Back on Earth, Jinwoo sat in his apartment staring at the communicator screen as the council's decision flashed before him. First contact. The words sent a jolt of unease through him. He had spent weeks blending into human society, observing their quirks and complexities. Now he would have to step out of the shadows and reveal himself, not just to Sohee, but to the entire world. He thought about Sohee often, wondering how she would react. She had already shown glimpses of suspicion, questioning his motives and probing for answers he couldn't give. Would she see him as a friend or a liar? The uncertainty weighed heavily on him. But there was no turning back now. The next morning, Jinwoo returned to the cafe where he had spent so many hours watching humanity. As usual, Sohee was there, typing furiously on her laptop. Her brow was furrowed in concentration, and stacks of papers surrounded her. Jinwoo approached cautiously, unsure how to begin. "Hey," he said softly, taking a seat across from her. Sohee looked up, startled. "Oh, hi. I didn't expect to see you today." "I need to talk to you," Jinwoo replied, his tone serious. It's important. Her curiosity piqued, so he closed her laptop and leaned forward. What is it? Jinwoo hesitated, searching for the right words. Remember when you asked me if I was hiding something? She nodded slowly, her expression wary. Yes. Well, he took a deep breath, bracing himself. I am, and everything you're about to hear will sound impossible, but it's true. For the next hour, Jinwoo told her everything. His true identity, the mission, the asteroid simulation, and the upcoming first contact. He expected disbelief, anger, maybe even fear. But instead, Sohee listened quietly, her eyes wide with astonishment. When he finished, she sat in silence for a long moment, processing what she had heard. Finally, she spoke. So, you're not human. No, Jinwoo admitted. I'm not. And this asteroid, that was all fake? Yes, it was a test, to see how humanity would respond. She shook her head, laughing softly despite herself. That's insane. Absolutely insane. Then, after a pause, she added, but it explains a lot. Jinwoo frowned. Like what? The way you always seemed different, like you were studying us instead of living among us. She studied him carefully, her gaze thoughtful. Why are you telling me this now? Because I trust you, Jinwoo said simply. And because first contact is happening soon. Humanity deserves to know the truth, and I want you to be prepared. So he nodded slowly, still absorbing the magnitude of what he had shared. What happens next? We'll see, Jinwoo replied honestly. My people will reach out to yours. Whether it leads to peace or conflict depends on both sides. In the days that followed, Jinwoo worked closely with Sohee to prepare for first contact. She used her journalistic skills to draft articles, explaining the aliens' intentions, ensuring the information reached as many people as possible. At first, skepticism ran high. Many dismissed the claims as hoaxes or conspiracy theories. But as evidence mounted, videos of alien spacecraft, messages broadcast directly from the Council, doubts began to fade. Governments around the world scrambled to respond, holding emergency meetings and issuing statements urging calm. Scientists collaborated with linguists to decode the aliens' communications, while religious leaders grappled with the implications of extraterrestrial life. Amid the chaos, Sohee became a trusted voice, helping bridge the gap between fear and understanding. Finally, the day of first contact arrived. A massive spaceship descended into Earth's atmosphere, hovering above a neutral location chosen for the meeting. Representatives from every nation gathered below, joined by millions watching via live broadcasts. The air was thick with anticipation, as a group of aliens emerged from the ship, their forms shimmering under the sunlight. At the forefront stood Yunha, her translucent blue skin glowing brightly. Beside her was Kyle, his metallic frame imposing yet somehow less intimidating than before. Behind them, Jinwoo stepped forward, his disguise now gone. He scanned the crowd until his eyes met Sohee's. She gave him a small, reassuring smile, and he felt a flicker of hope. Yuna stepped up to a microphone, her voice amplified for all to hear. People of Earth, she began, her tone calm and steady. We come in peace. For centuries, we have watched your species grow, fascinated by your adaptability, creativity, and resilience. We know you are capable of great destruction, but also of great compassion. Today, we offer you a choice, to stand alone or to join us as partners in shaping the future of the cosmos. The crowd erupted into murmurs, some cheering, others shouting questions. Leaders exchanged cautious glances, weighing the risks and opportunities. Slowly, a consensus began to form. Humanity wasn't ready to commit fully, but they were willing to listen. As the meeting continued, Jinwoo watched from the sidelines, feeling a mix of pride and apprehension. Humanity had proven itself time and again, resilient, resourceful, and determined. But the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Building trust between two vastly different species would take time, effort, and patience. Still, as he looked at Sohee, standing beside him, her notebook in hand and her eyes alight with determination, He allowed himself to believe. Maybe, just maybe, humanity's greatest strength wasn't their technology or their intellect. It was their ability to connect, to find common ground even with those who seemed impossibly alien, and in that connection lay the promise of a brighter future for both humans and the cosmos.